All right. So I am Jake Ellenbogen coming to you live, Bleacher Report. And we are here following a 34-17 loss in preseason for the Rams. They fall to the Chargers at SoFi Stadium. And I just want to remind you guys, okay, that this is not the end of the world. I just, got out of a watch party and there were a lot of people saying, this is bad. This team's bad. It's all bad. And just a reminder, it is preseason. So we're going to take things individually. There was some good, there was some bad, and there was some ugly. So we're going to dive into it. Before we do, I just want to let you guys know that I'm Jake Ellenbogen. You can find me at any point. If you like anything I'm doing here, you can find me over on Twitter at JK Bogan, as well as YouTube, Jake Ellenbogen. I'm also on Kick at JK Bogan. All right, now let's get into it here. We have the statistical breakdown coming to you live because of Bleacher Report. So we had the Rams. All right, just going through this. So obviously the big thing here is Stetson Bennett, right? And I'm just going to tell you right now, I thought there was some good, there was some bad, and there was some ugly with Stetson Bennett. I think there was more so good things to take away when it came to Bennett than bad, which is something you like to see. First off, I'll just say this right now. I think when you look at the 191 yards, you look at the fact that he started off the game about as poorly as you could, almost interceptions. He looked uncomfortable. Then he settles in. And when he settles in, I think that was really the moment. You start to see what Georgia saw, what obviously the Rams saw to draft him in the 4th round. He did not start this game. It was Rippon, and Brett Rippon came in. He didn't have a lot of success. He sailed on a few passes. The pressure was there. The offensive line wasn't great, wasn't really helping him out, but Stetson also dealt with that. I think starting off with the good with Stetson is that as the game progressed, you saw more comfortability with him. You saw a guy that was more poised in the pocket, a guy that was willing to let it go, zip on the football, which you like to see. This is somebody that has a bigger arm and a more zip behind his the ball he throws than people give him credit for. And I really came away with that on tape watching him at Georgia. He wasn't just a guy, and that's why he was drafted. But in this game, a really nice connection to Puka Nacua, who's really showed out in camp, was something that was eye-opening for me, especially. I really liked that. I really liked just how he got better, how he progressed. Those are the good things, right? Just the confidence, the killer instinct, his mobility. Okay. The bad and the ugly, also his mobility. I understand the pocket collapses. You want to run, but early on in the game, he was giving up too much as far as, real estate is concerned. He took a 20-yard sack. He took 3 sacks here in this game and lost a lot of yards in that regard. So look, Bennett, it's a good debut for a rookie. You can't go too much under the hood with him because, rookie quarterbacks. I mean, we saw CJ Stroud got his game picked apart on social media. At the end of the day, this is their first action in an NFL environment. And while it's not starters, you have to remember that this is still a faster game. Those Stetson Bennett runs to the outside when he goes down the sideline, you have to remember that's a college play. That worked in college. It doesn't work as well in the NFL. And we saw his speed is not going to translate on the level maybe some people thought. And so that is a big thing. I think he now knows he's going to have to work on, building his way as more of a pocket mobile guy and not a guy that can just take off and run. I like the effort. Don't get me wrong, but that's going to put him in some trouble. So I thought there were a lot of things to like. There was some good. There was some bad. But I think all in all, that was a really good performance from Stetson Bennett. 191 yards, a touchdown, no interceptions. And the one turnover he had was a fumble in which they missed an egregious face mask call on the Chargers. So, I will say that's his one miscue, so to speak. He had almost interceptions. He threw almost 2 on the first drive. Didn't look like that guy the rest of the way. Settled down, locked in. That's what you want to see. And I'm sure the Rams are feeling good They're going to get him in the film room. They're going to get him looking at the tape. And obviously, they might have a little bit of a laugh. What were you doing here? What were you doing here? But I think they're going to come to find that they're feeling very good about his game. Rippon started the game. This is a quarterback battle for, quarterback 2. Rippon and everything he's done so far in the league to be, a backup of name, he is still in the mix. And of course, 4th rounder Stetson Bennett is very much in the mix. When you look at the rushing attack, it wasn't quite on the level of the Chargers, who averaged over 8 yards per carry, but you saw some good things out of Zach Evans, who had 4.3 yards per carry, as you can see below. I thought Evans ran with some power, and he reminds me of a guy that you know very well, Cam Akers. I think he looks very similar to Cam Akers. I think that's kind of why they drafted him. I think, they're probably not going to be able to bring Akers back after this season. He is a restricted free agent, so anything could happen. But I think they're already preparing for that with Zach Evans' body composition. And I think you look at his ability to finish runs at the end, just a little bit of, battering ram power at the end of those runs, dishing some punishment. You like to see that. Ronnie Rivers, real creator with the ball in his hand. There weren't yards there to really gain, and Ronnie Rivers had a really nice run. He got 15 on a play. He had the run where, he was already dead to rights in the backfield. I thought was the most impressive run, where he had to kind of shift out of 2 tackles. So I was really impressed with Ronnie Rivers there. 6 carries for 31 yards, 5.2 yards per carry average. Royce Freeman plows his way in the end zone for a touchdown, 3.7 yards per carry average on 7 carries. There weren't a ton of holes to run through in this game. The offensive line is going to have to get better with that. But I thought Freeman looked like the vet that they signed. I don't know if that's good enough to make the roster, but I think when you look at Royce Freeman, his ability in pass pro is what is going to keep him very much alive, because make no mistake about it, Zach Evans is not ready to be in on 3rd downs when everyone in the defense knows that they are going to throw the ball. He's not ready in pass pro yet. And honestly, neither is Ronnie Rivers. That creates an opportunity to make the roster when it comes to a guy who's been in the league for a minute now in Royce Freeman. I thought he did well in pass pro, and of course the nice touchdown there, but he's probably the least of the 3. But it's still not a bad performance nonetheless. We look at the receivers, and the guy that really stood out to me right away was Tyler Johnson. Now, we could talk about the other guys, and we will, but Tyler Johnson came in after having to wait on the bench, watching Puka Nacua, watching Ben Skoranek, watching Demarcus Robinson get their turn. He came in and immediately made an impact, and we saw it. 5 catches on 7 targets, 70 yards. He had a 14 yards per reception average. This is somebody that early and often Stetson Bennett looked his way. And what was so fascinating to me is his ability after the catch. This is somebody at Minnesota, can get off the line of scrimmage, has really good, release packages off the line of scrimmage, his footwork. But the thing about him was that he was able to maintain possession of the football. He had some nice throws that from Bennett, and he was able to maintain possession. He had great spatial awareness to stay in bounds. But of course, the 34-yard scamper, the run and catch, that really set the Rams up and kind of was the momentum shifter at that point, was huge. So Tyler Johnson, 25 years old, it's going to be hard to keep him on the roster with everybody that they have. But I'll tell you right now, that's a good thing. That's a good problem to have if you're the Rams. And I kind of do think he'll make this roster. It's going to be hard to cut him. I think there'll be teams looking at him. And don't forget, he was playing not long ago in a playoff game with Tom Brady throwing him the football. So obviously this guy he's been in those moments before, and he may not be your first thought with the Rams receiving room, but he might be somebody hang on to a year or two. And we're looking at an Isaiah Hodgins type of story and what he did with the Giants last year. Just keep in mind. Austin Trammell, 4 catches for 36. I thought he played pretty well. He's a guy who I think is very much safe as far as getting him on the practice squad, but there could be a team that snatches him. I don't necessarily believe he'll make the roster. I think they're going to carry 7 wide receivers. I don't think they'll go 8. Unless they absolutely have to, but I think they'll keep 7, and they might look at Skoranek as more of like a fullback, tight end, wide receiver hybrid to kind of, feel good about their roster numbers. Puka Nacua came down with a touchdown, his first career touchdown from Stetson Bennett, 3 catches for 32 yards. You just see his suddenness, his urgency off the line of scrimmage. This is somebody that is probably going to be better than I ever could have anticipated as a 5th round pick. And you guys probably, because I don't think when the Rams drafted him in the 5th round, you and I were thinking that Stetson Bennett or not Stetson Bennett, but Puka Nacua had a chance to start. He's vying for that 3rd spot. Unfortunately, I think for him, Tutu Atwell has won that job. Okay, I think Tutu Atwell definitely won the job. He was not out there today in preseason, so I think he has a chance to go after that 4th spot. But it was a battle for the 3rd, I believe, going into camp. And, now we have more clarity there. But Puka Nacua does not look like your rookie that is figuring things out. He looks very much like he's been in the league for at least 2 years. So it's going to be exciting to see him with the ball in his hands, being relied on, first downs and what have you, those chain movers. And so I think that's a big thing there with Nacua. Lance McCutcheon had 2 catches for 28 yards, a far cry from what he did last year against the Chargers. But nonetheless, he's somebody that the Rams do like, and he could make the practice squad. I do not see him making the roster. Tyler Hudson added 2 catches for 15, and Demarcus Robinson only added 1 catch for 9. But honestly, I take away from that, Demarcus Robinson was not on the field long. They wanted to get him some juice because he hasn't played in this offense, but it says a lot that he really wasn't on the field that much. I think he's going to have a bigger role than people give him credit for, and I'm very excited to see that, moving forward. So we'll see what ends up happening there, with Demarcus Robinson. Skoranek added 2 catches for 7, and Christian Sims, the poor guy, had 2 targets. He doesn't get on the field much, right? So he's trying to make the roster. He gets 2 targets from Brett Rippon earlier, both overthrown. Stetson gave him 1 for 5, and that's how you had it in the receiving column. Tanner Brown, let's talk about the kicker here. All right. Look, he missed a field goal. He made a field goal. The up and down nature, we've already been there, right? We've been there, done that. Sam Sloman, that was an issue. You don't want to be losing games because of your kicker. I would not rule out at all, by any stretch of the imagination, the Rams going out and getting a veteran kicker like Robbie Gould. He's still available. And while he had a really high price tag coming into free agency, the more and more time passes and the more teams continue to let him just be, the more likely he's going to come down off that high number. So I think there's a chance the Rams look at the veteran market for a kicker. I think that's why right now they're trying to figure out what they're going to do with Tanner Brown. I think when you look at the punter, Ethan Evans is good to go. He was drafted. They like him. He gets hang time. He's got a leg. He's fine. Tanner Brown can't be missing field goals. It is only his first game in preseason, but you can't be missing field goals. And at least, he was good. He was 2 of 2 in those extra point situations, which you like to see. As far as the kick return and punt return situation, punt returner was Xavier Smith. He's not expected to be the punt returner. It's going to be either Kyron Williams or it's going to be Tutu Atwell or somebody along those lines, and they didn't play. So Xavier Smith got an opportunity. Puka Nacua also was listed in there, and he didn't really do much of it. He muffed one. It just wasn't a great day at the office for Xavier Smith. So the hope is that you bounce back in the next game or the game after that, but not a lot to put on tape, and he didn't come down with the reception, so he wasn't in the stat sheet in that regard. Kick returning wise, there wasn't really much there with Ronnie Rivers, who is technically the backup kick returner behind today's, healthy scratch, Kyron Williams. So in that aspect, I don't really think anything was really going down. We didn't really learn anything there. Special teams had an issue. They gave up a special teams touchdown to Darius Davis on the other side. So that's definitely something of a concern that hopefully they'll address. But then you look over at the defense, and the defense had a wicked hard time. We can go and we can look up the Chargers right now. They gave up 15.3 yards per carry to Dotson. Okay. It was not a great day at the office, averaging over 8 yards per carry when it came to the Chargers. They just had their way with the Rams. And so this defense obviously is not the starting defense, but you're hoping that they're going to make adjustments in that run game. They're going to have to, for that matter. So I think that's really what that comes down to. I think Keir Thomas, his ability to set the edge was definitely missed. And then when he came in, I thought he did a nice job, except for that one Dotson touchdown. He had 2 tackles for a loss. He had 1.5 sacks, so he was in there. They gave Daniel Hardy half a sack, but I don't know about that one. That was a tone-setting sack that kind of changed the momentum a little bit. Tanner Ingle, I thought, made some plays. The guy who stood out to me most on the defensive side, okay, was none other than Trey Hodges-Tomlinson. Okay, LaDainian Tomlinson's nephew was unbelievable in this game. I really think he has a chance to start in this secondary. And they're not saying it. I get it. I understand it. They're not saying it. But I think there's a chance he's already ahead of Darion Kendrick. Kendrick's been dealing with some injuries. I understand Kendrick is listed as a starter, but I'm just saying right now, with that fire, that demeanor, I think Trey Hodges-Tomlinson has a shot. I think we've been doing him a disservice by penciling him in the slot as if he can't play the boundary, because he played the boundary today against his former teammate, Quentin Johnston, first-round pick, and he did a nice job. He should not have been a 6th rounder. He proved it today. So that was one of the guys that I really liked in this one. And, another thing here, Byron Young, he didn't get the sack. They took it away from him. I have mixed feelings about that because they didn't call that obvious face mask call on Stetson. But Byron Young, I thought he looked decent. He wasn't going to get a ton of playing time because he's one of the starters this year. I mean, he's going to start unless they make a big move. He's going to start. So, I thought it was good to see him get going. And Tanner Ingle, again, we talk about the safety room, and you got Quentin Lake and Russ East and Jordan Fuller and John Johnson. Well, could they keep 5? And if that's the case, who would that be? And they drafted Jason Taylor II, but a guy to look out for in that secondary is none other than Tanner Ingle. And I think Ingle did a nice job today adding some tape. He had the safety blitz, pure football hit. You love to see that. And then, of course, Zach Van Valkenburg, had a few really nice stops that don't go in the, stat sheet as a tackle for a loss or anything, sexy like that. But he had 2 really huge stops that forced a 4th down that the Rams desperately needed to try to get back in this game. So hats off to him. I thought I saw some good things from him. Damian Square had a nice tackle on special teams that really stood out to me. Anya Lebechi looks good. And then Rashard LeCount came over and made a really nice tackle. There are some guys that really stood out. Jordan Jones as well. I think at the end of the day, right now, Dresser Wynn didn't end up playing at quarterback, so it was just Stetson Bennett and Brett Rippon. I wasn't leaving him out or anything. But I think right now, this is a good snapshot of what the Rams are dealing with, what kind of talent they have on the roster. You can't look at this like the Rams lost 34-17. Okay, that's not how you should be looking at this. You should be looking at it as, okay, the Rams lost, right? I mean, they lost preseason. Normally that doesn't even really matter, right? But they lost preseason, whatever. But the real story here is that their 4th round quarterback they drafted looks good. Like, he looks like he could be a backup quarterback to Stafford this year, be the backup, and maybe, just maybe, down the road with Sean McVay and company, turn into a starting quarterback. Maybe. That's good, right? We like to see that. Puka Nacua, the 5th round pick. Keep in mind, if they have a 50% hit rate on this 14-player draft class, that means you hit on 7 out of 14. You're going to be really good. That's going to help you tenfold moving forward. So that's something to keep in mind here. And I think that's really important. Obviously the whole thing with Stetson's really important. I thought you saw some good things to take away from this game. That next game, okay, maybe this guy's now playing a little bit more than the next guy. Like, Tyler Johnson is probably getting more playing time next game, I would imagine. I think he's probably going to come in a little bit sooner. Who knows? Maybe we don't see Demarcus Robinson at all. Maybe they're like, that's it. We're shutting you down. We've seen enough. We know you are going to matter to this team this year. We don't want to push anything, and I think that's an important distinction there. I don't think they're going to ramp it up. Did Sean McVay play more starters than I expected? No. I think Sean McVay pretty much stayed the course. It was pretty much the same as last year. I think in the year prior, he doesn't want to play starters. He doesn't want to play these guys that are going to have serious roles on the team. It's why he barely played Demarcus Robinson. It's why he barely played Quentin Lake. I mean, I think that's really what it comes down to. You want to be careful because At the end of the day, it's nice to get these guys a series or two, but we have all seen what happens if you give a guy a series or two and it takes a freak play, one freak play, and Sam Bradford tears his ACL. And now your quarterback you were so excited to have back, who came back from a torn ACL, is now suffering another one and completely turning, like flipping your season on its head. And that's the thing you don't want. So with Matthew Stafford coming back from an injury, you don't want to throw him in a preseason game. So I actually love the way Sean McVay does it. I think it's the right way. Sure, get Rochelle some playing time. Get Daniel Hardy. Get Quentin Lake. I have no issue with that. But there's no reason to put out the starters like some of these teams do. There's no reason whatsoever. I understand you want to get them some looks and get them comfortable. Doesn't matter. I'll take the rustiness at the beginning of the year, the short-term pain for the long-term gain. Okay? That way I know those guys are going to be healthy at least going into week 1. That's what I know. So big takeaways, big game balls I'm giving to. Stetson Bennett gets 1. Puka Nacua gets 1. And I'm going to give 1 to Trey Hodges-Tomlinson. I'm giving 3 out. Those are the 3 I'm giving. Actually, I'm not going to give it to Nacua, although that was a nice touchdown. I'm going to give it to Tyler Johnson. So Stetson Bennett, Tyler Johnson, and Trey Hodges-Tomlinson. I think you're going to see the 6th rounder and Trey Hodges-Tomlinson play a decent amount this year, and that's exciting. I'm curious what you guys think in the comment section. I'm going to look real quickly, so drop your comments. I do want to. So Tomlinson had, I agree, Edwin. Tomlinson had a really good game. Tomlinson stood out in a big way. I was really impressed with that. Really liked that. Stetson Bennett looked good. 3rd and 4th quarter against guys who are working at Taco Bell in 3 weeks. Okay, so I mean, to be fair, yes, Stetson Bennett looked better as time went on. Absolutely. As time went on, starters, more key role players were coming out of the game. That's absolutely true. But both things can be true. Stetson Bennett got more comfortable and got better as the game went on. That's certainly possible. While also another thing being true, there was lesser talent out there as the game went on. I think both things can be true. One could have had something to do with the other, but I think it's only fair to give Bennett credit where credit is deserved. And I think, he definitely deserved that credit. P Brown 30, thank you so much for the great content comment. Appreciate you there. Let's see. Bennett going to start next game for sure. I think he starts next game. I think they're going to be careful because, I think they wanted to be careful with him. They didn't want to throw him right into the fire right away. They knew he was going to start off a little slow. They probably had some jitters, speed of the game. I like how they did it. People disagreed. They let Rippon play an entire quarter. Stetson played pretty much the entire game after that, except for, I think, a few series in the second. But I like the way they did it. I like the way they did it. I think they protected him, and then they got him in position where he was able to play his own game. And now, of course, he's going to have to, ease up on the scrambling because you want to be able to, you don't want to get yourself killed, obviously, but you also have to live to play another down in terms of, protecting the football. And so that's a big thing there. Moving forward, you're going to have to, go through that. So I think that's a big thing. Bennett did have 2 interceptions dropped. He absolutely did. So Rip got to go. I don't know if I agree with that. We didn't really get to see much at all of Brett Rippon. He didn't have much time to throw. And I honestly was a little concerned because there was the play where he got sacked and he got thrown to the ground. He hit his head. And I'm not going to speculate that, it's a concussion or any injuries or anything, but I was definitely concerned when he hit his head. So I don't know if they're going to look into that. I think after that, he was sailing throws, so maybe that had something to do with it. I'm not trying to make excuses, but I think Rippon is going to be okay as a backup. Now, I think people are more likely going to watch Stetson, who's the younger, who's the more exciting quarterback, younger in terms of he's a rookie. But, I think at the end of the day, the Rams will make the decision that's best for their football team, and Stetson's going to make the roster, but it's a matter of, are they going to keep 2 or 3 quarterbacks? And I think that's really the conversation here. Are they going to keep Rippon, or are they going to, let him go and just have Stetson and ride it out as him as the backup? And I think that's a lot of pressure put on him, but I think if that's the road you're going to take, you need to make the decision now because these reps are valuable. And I think next game, I would play Stetson the whole game. I would play him the whole game, and I'd play him the whole third game. I'd get his reps out there now. Rippon, you already kind of know who he is, but that's the thing, is that these reps are important for the rookies more than they are for the veterans, because the veterans, a lot of this stuff is won in camp, guys. A lot of this stuff is won in practices. There's already plenty of tape about, of Brett Rippon out there. There's no tape of Stetson Bennett. Before today, there was no tape at it. McClendon didn't look bad at left tackle, says Rock Rams. I agree. I thought McClendon, who I was really high on, played with Bennett, started with Bennett at Georgia, moving over to left tackle. He looked natural there. And I thought he was really good when it came to being a convoy in the running game, combo blocking. He's the guy I'm looking out for. He got hurt in camp, so he's a little bit behind, but he didn't look behind, at all. I thought he played well. By the second game with the Raiders, O-line and D-line will improve better. Play Stetson whole game next week. I agree. Alex 408, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Agreed. Would rather have some beginning season rust than risk injury in a meaningless game. Totally agree with that. I think that's really what it comes down to. You want, you can shake off the rust. Can you shake off a torn ACL? No, you can't. You're just done. That's the end of your season. You come back next year. And so I think that's the important thing, is that you're not going to throw out Cam Akers with his Achilles, injury history. You're not going to throw out Matthew Stafford after the back. You're not going to throw out Aaron Donald after the ankle. He had ankle surgery. Cooper Kupp. You're not going to do it. You're just not going to do it. So I like that they don't play the starters. But also, let's be fair. I mean, the Chargers also don't play their starters either. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams weren't out there. Austin Eckler wasn't out there. Justin Herbert wasn't out there. None of those guys were out there. So, yeah, I think, Rock, I agree with you. I think Kier played solid as well. And I mean, I think he's on the outside looking in. He is not a guarantee to make this roster. And so he's really fighting, scratching, clawing. And you saw the urgency there. As far as the Chargers go, Dotson gave him fits. This has to get cleaned up. Now, I will say the defense is going to be bad in preseason. They're playing bend, don't break style defense. They're playing that soft shell, the 3-3-5 that they've been playing. And at the end of the day, they don't have the talent that they're going to have week one, right? They're not playing the starters. So it needs to get cleaned up in a sense, but also these guys only have 2 more games with each other. So at the end of the day, it's can we really say the Rams are bad at stopping the run? Can we really say the Rams are bad at special teams? That's the part. We can say that. They struggled in special teams. They didn't have everybody, but you'd like to see more out of the special teams unit. And so that's the hope, is that as time goes on, special teams unit will get better. Stetson will get more time to throw. Stetson will be more comfortable. And then you'll get guys like Puka Nacua. No, I don't even know if we'll see Puka Nacua after this performance. I think they'll be good to go. I think they might just lock it in with him. And I think the next game we might see Tyler Johnson start in his place. But you want to see more, Zach Evans, I would say, earlier. So hopefully they use more Zach Evans and he starts. I want to see more of him. I think you just try to hammer it home with these draft picks. And they were in a weird position, guys, because Tyler Higbee wasn't playing. Bryson Hopkins wasn't playing. So anyone that thought that Bryson Hopkins wasn't going to make this team and that the Rams didn't like him, well, they proved them wrong tonight, because Bryson Hopkins is a 100% lock to make the team. Hunter Long didn't play because of injury, so we don't know what his status is on the team. And they didn't play Davis Allen probably because of injury as well. He's been dealing with something. So, the only guys that suited up were Cameron McDonald, who they signed 8 days ago, right? And Christian Sims. So Sims got an opportunity to get 3 targets, but for the most part, this is actually where I want to point out something. Stetson Bennett did what he did without the safety net. That is a tight end. He didn't have a Davis Allen who's 6'7" to just throw to him, a 6'6" to just throw it to him. Big target or anything. He didn't have that. And so I think that's almost what makes it more important, what makes it more impressive for Stetson's playing time this time around, because he didn't have that option. He didn't have the tight end to throw to. He had Christian Sims and Cameron McDonald. With all due respect to those guys, they're probably not making the roster. So when you look at it, you're like, okay, Stetson really wasn't just dinking and dunking his way. He was making throws. That's why he ended up with an 11.2 yards per attempt, percentage. I mean, that's great. That's great stuff. You like to see him throwing past sticks. He threw further than Justin Fields did today. So, I mean, all jokes aside, but still, I mean, I'm serious. I think without the tight end throwing deep down the field, those were the things I liked about Bennett. What I also liked is that when Bennett tested down the field, you had guys like Tyler Johnson that were trying to sell the contact and get those pass interference calls, which happened, and that sets up drives. And you can say what you will about, relying on a flag, but it's part of the game. Tyler Johnson knows he got the pass interference call that sent Tampa Bay essentially to the Super Bowl. So that's something to keep in mind there. But all in all, I think McVay is glad that they got this one out of the way. I think, the Rams have a best foot forward mentality. I think that's what they intend on doing. I'm not worried about this team, and I'm excited about the season. How about that? We made it. Football is back. It was a fun time. And definitely need edge help. We'll see. We'll see with that. They might go out and get somebody. I don't know. We'll see. But, I think like Robert Quinn is available, and there's a chance that they could look outside of the organization and get some help at edge. There's definitely a chance there for sure. We need help on edge. So yeah, 2 people are saying it. It's also really early, based on how young they are. There's not a ton of, the youth there. There's not a ton of guys there. So, that's what I'll say about that. But yeah, we'll definitely find out. I mean, I think at the end of the day, there's some good stuff. There's some bad stuff. There's some ugly stuff. That's preseason. That's really what it comes down to. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I definitely enjoyed. It was a fun game to watch. You don't normally see a game that has a 34-17 score. That's a lot of points for a preseason game. I'll sign up for that no matter who's on the other side. But would love to see Brockers back and help the run game. Maybe we see that. I wouldn't rule it out. They brought back John Johnson. Maybe a Chase Young trade if both Byron and Hoyt can't pressure at all. Chase Young would be the one guy where I'm not a big on just trading for anybody, but I think Chase Young would be the guy that I would trade picks for. I would go out and get Chase Young. I would. And especially after, Les Snead's comments saying they're going to pretty much go back all in next year. They're going to go for it next year. I don't see why you don't. I don't see why you don't go after Chase Young. You get him now. He's part of your team now, and you sign him long-term. He's part of your plans moving forward. Talk about a star player, young age, guy that could replace AD down the road when AD decides to hang it up. There you go. And obviously not the exact thing there, but, So, yeah, that's going to do it. I'm Jake Ellenbogen. You can follow me on Twitter at JKBogan. You can find me on YouTube, Jake Ellenbogen. And you can find me over on kick.com/JKBogan if you want to watch more of my content. I appreciate you guys tuning in, and I will see you on the next stream following the next preseason game. Later, folks.